Totemist, the three-legged visitor. I never thought I'd be that person who posts strange experiences online. But after what happened in our town, I need to share this somewhere. Maybe someone out there has seen something similar. I live just outside Elfield, Illinois. Population barely 700. It's the kind of small town where everybody knows your business before you do. I've always loved the quiet out here, the way you can see every star at night without city lights washing them out. That changed last month. I was taking out trash around 11 p.m. when I first noticed it. The motion sensor light by my shed flickered on, and I expected to see a raccoon or maybe a stray dog. Instead, I froze mid-step. About 50 yards from my back porch stood something. Not quite animal, not quite human. It balanced on three long, spindly legs arranged in a triangular pattern. The creature stood about 6 feet tall, with a body that seemed too small for its limbs. But what really got me were its eyes. Two glowing red points in the darkness that didn't reflect light so much as emit it. We stared at each other for what felt like forever. Then it made this sound, not a growl or a screech, but a low, rumbling hum that vibrated through my chest. I dropped the trash bag and ran inside, locking every door and window. "You look like you've seen a ghost," my wife said when I stumbled into our bedroom. "Not a ghost," I told her, pulling the curtains closed. "Something worse." I didn't sleep that night. I kept checking the windows, convinced I'd see those red eyes staring back at me. By morning, I'd nearly convinced myself it was just my imagination playing tricks. Then Bill Henderson from the gas station called me. "Tom, you're not going to believe what I saw last night," he said, his voice unusually shaky. My stomach dropped as he described the exact same thing I'd seen. 3 legs, glowing eyes, that bone-rattling hum. "It was standing right at the edge of my property, watching my house," Bill explained. "My dogs were going crazy, but they wouldn't go near it." Within a week, 5 more people reported sightings. Melissa from the post office, Old Man Jenkins who lives by the creek, the high school principal. Each description matched perfectly. The 3 legs, the glowing eyes, that unsettling hum. Then things escalated. "It was scratching at my window," Mrs. Wilson told a group of us gathered at the diner. Her hands trembled around her coffee cup. 3 long marks in the glass, like it was trying to get in. "I found the same marks on my back door," Jason Parker added, "and footprints in the mud, 3 round imprints in a triangle pattern." The local sheriff tried to calm everyone down, suggesting it might be teenagers playing pranks, or maybe a strange animal that wandered into the area. But I saw his face when he examined those claw marks on Mrs. Wilson's window. He knew this wasn't any animal he'd ever encountered. The town organized a search party that weekend. 20 of us split into teams, armed with flashlights and hunting rifles, though nobody knew if weapons would even work against whatever this thing was. I went with Bill and 2 others, searching the wooded area behind my property where I'd first spotted the creature. The forest felt different that day. Too quiet, the air too thick. We found the footprints about 2 miles in. 3 perfect circular impressions, 8 inches deep in solid ground, as if whatever made them weighed hundreds of pounds. They formed a trail leading deeper into the woods, but as we followed them, something strange happened. The prints suddenly stopped, as if the creature had simply vanished or taken flight. "What the hell are we dealing with here?" Bill whispered, staring at the final set of prints. None of the search teams found anything more conclusive that day, just more triangular footprints, a few broken branches, and that heavy, unnerving silence. The sightings continued for another 2 weeks, then suddenly stopped. We all breathed a collective sigh of relief, thinking whatever had visited our town had moved on. Then people started to disappear. First was Kyle Matthews, a night security guard at the grain storage facility. His truck was found running, driver's door open, flashlight still on. But no Kyle. 3 days later, Mrs. Wilson vanished from her home. No signs of forced entry, no struggle, just gone, with her front door standing wide open. By the third disappearance, Old Man Jenkins, people started leaving town. Those who stayed formed neighborhood watches, installed security systems, kept their children close. The authorities brought in outside help, state police, even some federal investigators. They searched the woods, dragged the creek, interviewed everyone. They found nothing. I'm still here in Elfield. Sarah wanted to leave, but this is our home. I've installed cameras, motion sensors, the works. Every night, I check them obsessively. 3 weeks ago, the disappearances stopped as suddenly as they began. The town is quieter now, with so many empty houses. Those of us who remain don't talk much about what happened. What would we say? That some three-legged monster took our neighbors? That sounds crazy, even though we all know it's true. I don't think it's gone. I think it's just waiting, and I don't know what it wants, but I know it isn't finished here. Last night, I found 3 deep impressions in the soil beneath my bedroom window. Millbrook. I didn't plan to stop in Millbrook, Nevada. It was just a tiny dot on the map. But after 9 hours of driving through the desert, my eyes were getting too heavy to continue safely. The sun had set about an hour earlier, and the dark stretch of highway ahead seemed to stretch forever. The neon vacancy sign of the Pine Creek Motel appeared like an oasis, dim and flickering, but enough to catch my attention. I pulled into the gravel lot, noticing only 2 other vehicles parked near what looked like the office. The motel was a single-story building with maybe 12 rooms total. Paint peeled from the wooden siding, and several of the outdoor lights were burned out. Not exactly a 5-star accommodation, but I just needed a place to sleep for the night. A bell jingled when I pushed open the office door. The interior was sparse. A desk, a wall of keys, and a few faded travel brochures in a rack. No one was at the counter, but I could hear a TV playing somewhere in the back. "Hello?" I called out. After about 30 seconds, a man emerged from a back room. He was thin, maybe in his 50s, with circles under his eyes so dark they looked like bruises. He didn't greet me, just stared expectantly. "I need a room for the night," I said. He nodded and slid a paper registration form across the counter. While I filled it out, I tried making small talk. "Quiet night, huh?" He glanced up briefly. "Always is." "How many rooms do you have available?" I asked. "All of them," he replied flatly, taking the form from me without looking at it. He grabbed a key from the wall, room 8, and handed it to me. "That'll be 60 cash, no credit cards." I paid him, and he pointed toward the door. "End of the building, checkout's at 11. As I turned to leave, I noticed a framed newspaper article on the wall. The headline mentioned Millbrook, but the clerk cleared his throat loudly, drawing my attention away. "Anything else?" he asked, clearly wanting me gone. I shook my head and left. Room 8 was basic. A queen bed with thin blankets, a TV that probably got 3 channels, and a bathroom with rust stains in the tub. I locked the door, secured the chain, and even pushed the small desk in front of it for good measure. Something about this place just didn't feel right. I was too tired to dwell on it, though. After a quick shower, I collapsed onto the bed and fell asleep almost instantly. The knocking woke me up at 2:17 a.m. At first, I thought it was part of a dream, but it continued, soft but persistent. It was coming from the wall beside my bed, the wall I shared with room 7. I sat up and listened. The tapping continued, now with a pattern that sounded almost deliberate. Then came the voices. I couldn't make out words, just muffled conversation. A man and a woman, their tones urgent but quiet. Occasionally, the woman's voice would rise slightly, as if in distress. "Hey, keep it down," I called out, rapping on the wall with my knuckles. The voices stopped immediately. Then the tapping resumed, faster now. I tried to ignore it, covering my head with the pillow, but the sounds continued for nearly an hour before finally stopping. I drifted back into an uneasy sleep. Morning arrived with harsh sunlight through the thin curtains. I packed quickly, eager to get back on the road. As I was loading my car, I noticed something odd. Besides my car, the lot was completely empty. No other vehicles at all. When I returned to the office to drop off my key, a different person was at the desk. An older woman with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. She looked up when I entered. "Checking out of 8?" she asked. I nodded and placed the key on the counter. "Can I ask about the guests in room 7? They were pretty noisy last night." The woman frowned. "Room 7? That's not possible." "What do you mean? I heard them through the wall," I said. "There was no one in room 7, she stated firmly. "You were our only guest last night." A chill ran down my spine. "But I heard voices and knocking." The woman's face softened slightly. "This old building settles at night. Pipes make noise. Wind gets in the walls." I wanted to argue, but decided against it. The faster I got out of there, the better. As I pulled back onto the highway, my curiosity got the better of me. I stopped at a gas station about 10 miles down the road and used my phone to search for Pine Creek Motel, Millbrook, Nevada. The first result was a news article dated 3 years ago. The headline read, "Historic Pine Creek Motel closes after 67 years." I clicked on it, my hands getting clammy. According to the article, the motel had shut down 3 years ago after the owner passed away. The property had been abandoned since then, with occasional talk of renovation that never materialized. Further down in the search results was another article from 6 years ago, "Fifth Disappearance Linked to Nevada Motel." It detailed how 5 travelers had vanished after checking into the Pine Creek Motel between 2015 and 2019. The last person mentioned was the owner, the same one who had supposedly passed away. I scrolled through images till I found one of the motel owner from an old promotional photo. The caption listed him as James Harwick, owner. It was the same man who had checked me in last night. I dropped my phone and immediately pulled back onto the highway, pushing well above the speed limit. About 20 minutes later, my phone rang with an unknown local number. I let it go to voicemail. The message was brief, just 2 seconds of static, followed by the same tapping I'd heard through the wall. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap, tap, tap. I never drove through Millbrook again. At the Cecil. I booked the Cecil Hotel in downtown LA because it was cheap. That's it. I was in town for a job interview and needed to save money. When I checked in last month, the front desk clerk gave me an odd look when I handed over my credit card. "First time at the Cecil?" he asked, typing my information. "Yeah, just in town for a couple of nights," I replied. He nodded slowly. "Room 506. Elevators are to your right. Checkout is 11 a.m. The lobby was old, but clean enough. A bit run down, but what do you expect for $75 a night in downtown LA? The elevator creaked as it carried me to the 5th floor. The hallway stretched out in both directions, identical doors lining each side. My room was near the end. Inside, the room was basic. A bed, desk, small bathroom. The window overlooked the street, city lights blinking in the early evening. I unpacked, hung tomorrow's clothes in the closet to prevent wrinkles, and decided to get some rest. That's when I first noticed the water stain on the ceiling. A dark patch that seemed to grow larger the longer I looked at it. Probably just old plumbing issues, but it bothered me enough that I kept glancing up at it. I fell asleep around 10 p.m. At exactly 3:17 a.m., I woke up. Not gradually, but suddenly. Eyes open, fully alert. The room was darker than it should have been. The city lights that had filtered through the window were gone, as if something was blocking them. That's when I noticed a woman standing at the foot of my bed. She wore an old-fashioned dress, her hair styled in a way that reminded me of 1950s photographs. She didn't move or speak, just stood there watching me. I blinked, and she was gone. My heart raced as I turned on every light in the room. I told myself it was just a dream, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had really seen someone. I didn't sleep again that night. The next morning, I asked the front desk clerk about the hotel's history while waiting for coffee in the lobby. "Oh, the Cecil has quite a past," he said, glancing around as if checking who might be listening. "It's been around since the 1920s. "Anything unusual happen here?" I asked. "Define unusual," he replied, with a small smile. "Let's just say, if these walls could talk, they'd scream." I laughed it off, but his words stuck with me throughout the day. When I returned to the hotel after my interview, I Googled Cecil Hotel history on my phone. I shouldn't have done that. The pages of incidents, unexplained situations, and strange occurrences made my stomach turn. How had I never heard of this place? The hotel had been renamed at some point, which explained why the name hadn't rung any bells when I booked it. That night, I decided to stay awake. I kept the TV on, lights bright, and planned to check out first thing in the morning. Round midnight, the TV flickered, then went out completely. The lights followed seconds later. I reached for my phone to use as a flashlight, but the screen showed only static. Then came the knocking. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. Just 3 more taps, slightly louder. I looked through the peephole, but saw only an empty hallway. When I turned back to the room, my heart nearly stopped. A man stood by the window, tall, thin, wearing a suit that looked several decades out of date. His face was blurred, as if someone had smudged it with an eraser. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice barely audible. He pointed to the ceiling, to that water stain that now seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. I blinked, and suddenly I was sitting in the hotel lobby. The clock on the wall said 4:38 a.m. I had no memory of leaving my room or coming downstairs. The night clerk stared at me with concern. "Sir, Are you okay? I was just in my room, I said. How did I get here? You walked off the elevator about 10 minutes ago, he said. You've been sitting there staring at the wall. I rushed back to my room, packed my things, and decided to check out early. But when I tried to leave, I couldn't remember how to get to the lobby. The hallways seemed longer, doors appearing where I didn't remember seeing them before. Every time I thought I found the elevator, I ended up back at room 506. Eventually, I gave up and went back inside my room. The water stain had grown. Now, it covered nearly half the ceiling, dripping down the wall. But the liquid wasn't water. It was too dark, too thick. I tried to call the front desk, but the phone was dead. My cell phone showed no signal. That's when the bathroom door opened by itself. Standing in the doorway was a young woman with long dark hair. Unlike the others, she looked modern, wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans. She smiled at me, then turned and walked back into the bathroom. I followed her without thinking. The bathroom was empty, but the mirror showed not my reflection, but a door to the roof. Then, blackness. I woke up in a hospital bed 3 days later. According to the police, hotel security footage showed me walking through the halls at 5:20 a.m., talking animatedly to thin air. The footage tracked me to the roof access door, which should have been locked, but wasn't. A maintenance worker found me the next morning, lying on my back on the roof, eyes open, completely unresponsive. The doctors call it a psychotic episode. They say stress can trigger such things, especially in unfamiliar environments. But they didn't see the footage I convinced a sympathetic officer to show me. They didn't see how, in the grainy security video, I wasn't alone. Walking beside me, clear as day, was a procession of people, different ages, different eras of clothing, all guiding me toward the roof. I checked the news every few months, looking for reports of incidents at the Cecil. They happen like clockwork. Every so often, another guest experiences something unexplainable. Some check out early, some disappear entirely. The hotel has been renamed again since my stay. New paint, new management, new reputation. But the water stain in room 506 remains. I know because sometimes I see it on my ceiling at home, spreading slowly across the plaster. A reminder that some places never really let you leave. If you like these stories, feel free to subscribe to the Totemist channel for more. We appreciate each and every one of you.